welcome back. Let's talk about the scourge, as I said, of first cousin marriages. Now, first cousin marriages have been legal in this country since Henry VIII, who passed another one of those laws that he was always passing laws in order to marry people. Even started a new church so he could divorce. He didn't mind bending the rules, old Henry. Anyway, he wanted to marry his first cousin, so it became legal, and it's been legal ever since. They've never sought to change that or to bring in a law to stop it, or bring back a law to stop it, because it was pretty rare. It's not really worth worrying about that much. However, it is now becoming increasingly common among certain communities, Muslim communities, foreign communities, and because of this alarming rise in first cousin marriages, the MP Richard Holden is trying to bring a bill, get an act through a private member's bill through Parliament banning this practice. Strangely, well, it's not actually that strange, Labour aren't supporting that. That's because, Chloe, guess what? They want the Muslim vote. Mm-hmm. Now, extraordinarily, an independent MP, a guy called Iqbal Mohammed, he's the MP for Dewsbury, I think it is, in the Midlands, Dewsbury and Batley. He stood up in the Commons yesterday and a couple of days ago, and he said, you shouldn't ban these, we shouldn't stigmatise people who do this because, it's a practice. And he went on to say that we really should allow these marriages, because he said, I'm going to quote, an estimated 35 to 50% of all sub-Saharan African populations either prefer or accept cousin marriages, and it is extremely common in the Middle East and South Asia. The reason, he went on, the practice is so common is that ordinary people see family intermarriage as something that is very positive. Now, these kind of marriages, it's a medical fact that they can, not always, but there's a pretty good probability that they'll cause serious childbirth defects. We're talking about cleft palates, cleft lips, blindness, hearing loss, child diabetes, limb malformations, heart defects, schizophrenia, and more. Now, this is no-brainer. This is a medical fact, and yet we have an MP in the House of Commons saying, "Oh, well, you shouldn't stigmatise this because it's really popular in sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East and South Asia." Oh, well, if it's popular in sub-Saharan Africa, let's do it. I mean, why have we got MPs standing up in the British Parliament to say, "Come on out now, we've got to do it like the sub-Saharan Africans do. We've got to do it like the Middle East." No. This is a different country, and that is not our way, right?
I mean, it's gross. I mean, my jaw dropped when I saw that MP, one of these independent pro-Gaza MPs, Iqbal Mohammed, standing up, making that speech, saying, "Oh, it strengthens family ties." I'm sorry, I can have a nice meal with my family to strengthen my family ties. You don't need to start sleeping with your cousin and marrying them. I mean, it's literally gross. I was surprised when I heard that speech. Honestly, I didn't realise that it was legal to marry a first cousin. I presumed that it was already illegal, because that's absolutely just disgusting and messed up. And then when you see the stats on it, I mean, I can't remember the exact stats of exactly the rates in the United Kingdom.
I could tell you. There was a study in Bradford, which obviously has a big Muslim community. Something like 34%.
Yeah, I think it might be 37
of childbirth deformities came from what they call intermarriages, marriages between first cousins.
I can't believe how common it is. Not just in sub-Saharan Africa, but here in the UK. I mean, I presume that this was something that just didn't happen, or very, very rarely ever happened in this country. And I'm sorry, but there are 8 billion odd people on this planet, OK? You can find someone else to marry who isn't your first cousin. And it's not like that's your only pick. Now, in some of these backwards communities, the reason why this happens is because you're not allowed to talk to any women outside of your family. It's frowned upon. They've all got to be, you know, completely covered up outside, not allowed to talk to or engage with any men. So you don't, you know, guys don't meet a nice girl to ask on a date. So the only girl you know is your cousin, and you've got to ask the father for permission. So you say, hey, can I marry your daughter? And that's how you end up with it happening. It is so messed up. And, you know, aside from the cost to the NHS, British taxpayer, I'm sorry, you know, we're struggling enough as it is. We don't need to start paying for a load of nurses to deal with all these birth defects. But forget about the cost, just think about the moral side of it. I mean, I think it's child abuse to bring a child into this world with potential defects, limb abnormalities and whatnot, when, as I say, there are 8 billion other people on this planet that you could have chose from to have a kid with that would have had a far higher chance of coming out normal. It's so messed up.
And to give you a window into why this is being allowed to continue, it's once again, it's this kind of timidity around foreign cultures, particularly Muslim cultures in this country. Fair enough, this was a couple of years ago, but Bradford NHS Trust, this emerged today, said, they kind of backed into marriages, saying the practice is cultural, of course. Oh, well, if it's cultural, that's all right. It's not. It's not. I don't care if it's cultural. I don't care if that's what they do in sub-Saharan Africa and the Middle East. We don't do it here. They can carry on if they want. I'd advise them not to. It's prehistoric. It's medieval. It's ridiculous. Children are being born in a terrible state because of this. So don't tell me about it's cultural. But in order to prove that they are sort of steeped in these cultural considerations, the Bradford NHS Trust, in a special report 2 years ago, said it's cultural, and actually it's not much worse than white women having children over the age of 34. That's what they concluded.
But that is just an awful comparison. I mean, cultural relativism, you know, the moral theory that any moral code can be correct. It's just whatever is the status quo in one culture, that's morally correct. I'm sorry, but no, that is not a popular theory. It's got so many flaws with it, but it seems to be popular again, right? If you say, oh, in that culture, they beat women, that's morally correct because that's their culture and whatever they think is right is right. It's just ridiculous. I'm sorry, there are certain things which I think across the board are universally morally wrong, and this has to be one of them. This should not be happening in Britain, but they'll be scared to make this illegal, and clearly the Labour Party are, because they don't want the Islamophobia card pulled on them.
More than that, numerically, they want the Muslim vote. So the Labour Party is constitutionally terrified of offending Muslims because there's about 4 million votes in it for them. And they weren't that bothered at the last election because they knew they'd win either way. So they didn't mind slightly offending the Muslims, particularly, you remember, Keir Starmer backed Israel and all that, because he knew numerically he didn't have anything to worry about. At the next election, I mean, I predict, I certainly suspect he's going to get hammered anyway, but it's going to be one hell of a lot closer at the very least. He's going to need the numbers. So this is what's going on. This is why Labour will not back the banning of first cousin marriages. These marriages cause terrible defects. And as I say, that is a window into the tortured soul of the white middle class liberals when they say, oh, well, you know, okay, it's a cultural practice. It's no worse than white women over the age of 34 having children. Yeah, it is. It really is. And I don't care if it's cultural. Their culture, in this respect, is flat out wrong, right?
I mean, it's just absolutely bonkers. But just speaking about the next election, look, we don't know exactly what's going to be going on in Gaza come 2029, but it's important to note that although Labour got a heck of a lot of seats at this election, this was not a slam dunk victory for them, and they were they had these pro-Gaza independent MPs. I know we've got only a few of them in Parliament, but there were quite a lot of seats where Labour were nearly, I think you had Jess Phillips nearly unseated because of it, and then she was being shouted at by the pro-Gaza supporters in the audience. You've got a lot of Labour MPs that could be at risk of losing their seats if we see more of these sectarian independent MPs crop up. I mean, it sounds like from Jeremy Corbyn they're all going to form a party together now, so they might be scared of losing their seats to that lot. It's not just going to be Reform that are going to be a threat to them, and so they're not going to want to upset the Muslim population.
No, and they need the votes, so that's why they're not stopping this. And don't forget, just before Mr. Iqbal Mohammed got involved with his medieval ideas, a few days before that, there was Labour MP Tariq Ali urging the Prime Minister to commit to introducing measures to prohibit the desecration of all religious texts and the prophets of the Abrahamic religions. In other words, will the government bring back blasphemy laws when it comes to the Quran? No, we won't, Mr. Ali, because we got rid of our blasphemy laws in 2008 and not before time, because they're medieval and ridiculous. I don't encourage desecrating the Quran or the Bible or any other religious text, but in a free country, if I want to make some kind of demonstration by setting fire to the Quran or the Bible, I should be able to do so, and it's good that I am able to do so. So thank you very much, you two MPs for the Middle Ages. Thanks, but no thanks. Your feelings, please. Let me know what you think about this. Surely we've got to ban first cousin marriages. Children are being born with terrible defects because of them, and yet Labour is saying, oh, let them carry on. Really?